What's going on, guys? Today I am back with the Civic. I need to do some maintenance on here. Actually needs more than just a little bit of maintenance. It needs a lot. But what I'm going to be doing today is changing out my lower ball joints. Whenever I hit a pothole or a bump in the road, it just feels like kind of sloppy, like it shakes. So definitely the ball joints need to be replaced. I need to change out some of the other stuff, but for now we'll be changing those on out. So I'm going to be getting right to it. First thing I'm going to do is jack up one side, take off the plastic hubcap to expose the steel wheel, and then just kind of loosely put on the lug nuts and put it back on the ground, just because first thing I need to do is loosen up that CV axle nut and the center nut in the middle of that wheel. Now I have the steel wheel exposed so I could get to the center nut. The socket that I have that fits is a 1 1/4. I know this is definitely supposed to be metric, but it fits for the most part. I know it's not going to strip it. I've used this plenty of times. So let me go ahead and break that loose. The CV axle nut is completely loose. If that has never been taken off for you guys on your car, then you might have a little bit of an issue taking that off. You could get a breaker bar, put a pipe on it, and if that still does not work, you got to make sure that indention, there's like an indention that kind of locks it in place, keep it from backing out. You got to try to flatten that as much as you can, and then try to get it off with a breaker bar, or if you have an impact, and that definitely would be helpful. Just push up the PSI all the way and just try to really hit it. Now that is off, I'll be able to jack up the car and put some jack stands underneath it, take off the wheels, and we'll get right onto the suspension. And the CV axle nut is loose. Next thing you want to loosen up is the outer tie rod. Already loosened up. Take that on, or almost all the way off. Hit it with the hammer, it should pop off. And as you guys could probably see, all these ball joints are just ugly, man. That one's all torn up. Upper one is all torn up. So now with that off, able to turn the wheel back and forth without an issue, without the steering locking up. Next thing I'm going to be taking off is this brake caliper. So get the bolts right behind here. This bolt right here is a 14 for me, and then this one down here looks to be like a 12. If you guys saw the other video I had of changing out my brakes, my front brakes and pads, take that out, get the caliper on out, and then I do have a rod here that I could just hang the caliper without any issues here. Alright, so the camera turned off because it's just so hot out here, it starts overheating. But I did loosen up the hose bracket for the caliper, if you guys can't see, and so the caliper is just loose hanging by that wire I have there. Did take off this sensor, this ABS sensor. There's a 10 that holds it right here, a 10 right there, and then two 10s over here, if you guys can't see them. Did get that tie rod off. You guys just see these ball joints are just nasty, man. Look at that upper one, and then this lower one. I did loosen up the lower ball joint, and I hit it with a hammer just on the side here. Took about 3 hits, and it did loosen up, and so you guys could see that is loose. Next thing I need to do is take out this cotter pin. Need to get my pliers and then loosen up this bolt here for the upper control arm and hit on that and make that upper control arm get loose so the knuckle could just completely come out. Took off the nut for the CV joint and just come out pretty easily. Now technically you can just loosen up that lower ball joint, pick up the knuckle, slide out the control arm, and change out the ball joint if you have the tool for it. So what I was saying is, if you take out this ball joint, lift up, and then make the CV joint come out, see, you have enough room to get the tool in here to change out that lower ball joint. Here's that lower ball joint. It easily moves with my fingers, so definitely this thing needs to be changed out. And then there's up and down play on there too. Let me get to that upper control arm and take the knuckle completely out. So you guys saw me get the knuckle off here. I do have the lug nuts on it, just loosely on there, if you guys can't see. And so I'm not hurting the threads, and it's a bit stable. But now to take off this lower ball joint, usually just hit them with the hammer and it should come out. So let me do that real quick. Alright, so it came out. I had to put a socket over it to get a good hit on there. There it is, guys. That ball joint's messed up now, but there it is. Alright, so here we have the knuckle. Took out that ball joint nice and clean, wiped everything down, any excess grease that was out on here. And if you guys saw my video, I did replace these wheel bearings not too long ago. If you want to go ahead and check that video out. So now to put on this lower ball joint, I did buy some lower ball joints from Honda. There's the part number, and again, this is a 2000 Civic EX 51220S04003. And let me get this open. Here's the ball joint. Now if you need the nut, that does cost extra, and if you need the cotter pin, that as well costs extra. I did buy the cotter pins. It was like 64 cents each, I think. And then the ball joint, they're about like $60 something a piece. So now to install these in, first thing I want to do is put a little bit of grease on here, and then a little bit of grease where it's going to sit inside of the knuckle there. Alright, cool. So I put grease on here and on the ball joint. And so just go and put the ball joint in there like if you're going to push it on in. Now I do have a ball joint installer tool. I would definitely recommend to buy it. It makes the installation a whole lot easier instead of trying to get like a press, or sometimes people want to hit them on in. And so avoid that, avoid any markings, anything like that. Let me show you that tool. Here is the tool, guys. Comes with different like cups that you can use, and I already have it assembled here, just the threaded piece into like the C-clamp. And I'm going to be using this cup. I'll show you exactly how it works. Alright, so I have this cup here. It goes around the ball joint, and it's not going to cause any interference with the ball joint getting pushed on in. So this gives it enough room for it to be pushed all the way. And so I'm just going to put that right there. And then you're going to grab this tool, like the C-clamp, and just tighten it on in. You might need to use a breaker bar at some points, because sometimes it might go in a little bit crooked, so just gotta use that pressure to make it go in straight, especially in the beginning. So this knuckle is all finished up, and honestly it can be installed onto the car. Just tighten everything on down. But what I'm gonna do is get started on that passenger side, take it on down, just kind of speed through it, show you guys exactly taking all the bolts off and stuff, and do the exact same thing. Got the passenger side knuckle off. Here's that lower ball joint, real crusty. Time to knock it out. So there it is. Here's the old one out. Time to clean this up and put in a new one. So everything is good to go. I have the driver's side knuckle over here, and then the passenger side, which I'm going to be starting on first. I'm just going to speed on through it. I'm going to first loosely put everything on, and then we'll get on to torquing the bolts down to the proper spec. So now I'm going to be torquing everything. First thing I'm going to torque down is the upper control arm ball joint. That is anywhere from 29 to 35 foot-pounds. I'll put a link down below in the description where I get these specs. So that is torqued down, and then the reason why it's 29 to 35 foot-pounds is because you do have to move it to where you could put the cotter pin in for the castle nut. So I'm going to put the old cotter pin in. You should use a new one, but use the old one. The next thing I'm going to torque down is the outer tie rod. Again, that one too is about 29 to 35 foot-pounds. Now for the caliper bolts, these are torqued down to 24 foot-pounds. I just do them hand tight personally. If you guys don't know your torques by hand, then I definitely recommend to use a small torque wrench for that. And then the other 10 little 10 mils over here that connect the ABS sensor and the brake hose, I just do that to hand tight. Now this lower ball joint is going to be 36 to 43 foot-pounds, and I do have some new cotter pins for that. So I'm going to get this one tightened up. Everything is torqued down. I'm going to be putting the wheel on without the plastic hubs on there because I still got to torque down the center nut. This one has to be torqued down to 134 foot-pounds. So now last thing to torque down is the wheels, and I torque the lug nuts down to 95 foot-pounds. Now here on the passenger side, I already torqued everything down, put in the cotter pins, and then the tie rod, brakes, and lower ball joint is all finished up. Now I need to throw on the wheel and torque down the CV axle nut, and then of course throw on the hub and torque down the wheel. Okay guys, so I finished up and I did take it on a little test drive. It definitely feels a lot better, especially when it comes to like rougher roads or bumps in the road, potholes and stuff like that. All I can say is that it feels a lot more sturdier. Before I'll hit a bump and it feels like the whole car or whole suspension kind of just like wobbles. So now that has gone away. Definitely I need to go ahead and replace that upper control arm, the inner and outer tie rods, and you know, some of those bushings, the lower control arm bushings, stuff like that. So everything is all good on the car, feels a whole lot better, so it's going to be a lot more funner to drive and a lot more reliable. Hopefully you guys like this video. Comment down below if you have any questions. I'll put a link again down to the torque specs in the description box, and make sure you guys are subscribed on the channel because I'm definitely going to have a lot more videos coming to you. So I'll catch you on the next one, player.